The faint scent of charred garlic and simmering stock was a familiar, comforting perfume in Jamal J. Washington's small, cluttered kitchen. At 17, Jay possessed a mind that hummed with a restless curiosity, an extraordinary, intuitive understanding of culinary arts, food science, and the nuanced alchemy of flavor that defied his humble surroundings. His home, tucked deep within a low-income, underserved urban neighborhood, offered little in the way of conventional opportunity. Instead of gleaming culinary labs and rows of pristine equipment, his study routine unfolded late into the night. By the weak glow of a single flickering bulb, he'd pore over dusty, handwritten recipe books and intricate flavor diagrams, their pages brittle with age. These weren't ordinary texts. They were his late great-grandmother's, filled with meticulous notes on obscure ingredient interactions and forgotten preservation techniques. He surrounded himself with makeshift experiments, salvaged ingredients, and broken appliances carefully repurposed. His worn, often flour-dusted clothes, patched at the elbows, seemed to swallow his lean frame, emphasizing his intense focus as he meticulously transferred complex flavor profiles and cryptic formulas into his own worn notebook. Every line, every hurried scribble, was a testament to his unwavering dedication to learning, a silent battle against the systemic challenges that choked his dreams, the glaring lack of formal culinary education, the absence of proper kitchen facilities, and the pervasive racial bias that often steered young black men away from prestigious culinary programs. Yet, through it all, Jay carried himself with a quiet dignity, his compassion a deep, constant current, especially for his younger sister Nia, whose rare autoimmune disorder required a specialized, increasingly expensive diet. Their meager meals were always shared, Jay meticulously ensuring Nia ate before him, often crafting unique, tailored dishes to manage her condition, her frail health a silent vow that propelled him forward. One sweltering afternoon, the kind where the humidity seemed to press down on the entire city, Jay was walking home through the bustling, chaotic market after a long shift at a local diner. The air vibrated with the shouts of vendors, the murmur of haggling, and the rhythmic beat of street performers. In his hand, he carefully carried a small, perfectly wrapped portion of leftover, but exquisitely prepared, braised short ribs from the diner, his own dinner, a rare treat he had managed to save. Suddenly, a frantic commotion erupted near a small bakery stall. A street vendor, a woman with tired but kind eyes, was struggling, looking distraught as her display of delicate sugar-spun pastries, the centerpiece of her small business, had been accidentally ruined, scattered across the grimy pavement by a careless passerby. Panic rippled through the small crowd. People shouted, some offered useless advice, while others simply stared, paralyzed by a lack of understanding. Jay didn't hesitate. His mind, honed by countless hours of studying his great-grandmother's manuals and applying his practical wisdom, clicked into action. He pushed through the throng, his eyes quickly assessing the scene. The pastries were unsalvageable, but the vendor's face was etched with despair, the loss clearly hitting her hard. While others continued to offer unhelpful suggestions, Jay, with surprising composure for his age, knelt beside the distraught woman. He knew time was critical. "Please, don't worry about the pastries," he said, his voice calm but firm, cutting through the rising hysteria. He opened his hand, extending the small, carefully wrapped parcel. The aroma of perfectly seasoned short ribs wafted into the air. "It's not much, but this is for you. It's a good meal. You need your strength more than anything right now." The vendor stared at the offering, then at Jay's earnest face. She initially refused, trying to wave him away, but Jay gently insisted. "No, truly," he said, his voice softer now. "I know what it's like to have something you poured your heart into just vanish. Please, take it." His quiet empathy and the simple, genuine gesture melted her resistance. She took the parcel, her hand trembling, tears welling in her eyes as she murmured her profound gratitude. This selfless act, this quiet demonstration of his innate culinary knowledge, the carefully prepared food, his profound compassion, and his remarkable calmness under pressure, solidified Jay as a protagonist to root for, highlighting his immense potential and good heart. This was his save the cat moment. Tucked securely into the pocket of Jay's worn, often flour-dusted clothes, always with him, was a small, worn, brass-bound spice box. Its surface was smooth with age, its intricate, almost alchemical engravings depicting mystical herbs and fantastical flavor diagrams almost worn smooth by time. It was an old, obscure piece, hinting at a forgotten legacy. His own great-grandfather, Chef Alistair, the flavor alchemist, Washington. He had been a brilliant but eccentric culinary innovator in the mid-20th century, a visionary whose groundbreaking food science techniques and unique flavor profiles were unjustly suppressed, and his profound contributions erased from mainstream culinary history due to pervasive systemic racism and corporate espionage. The spice box, a tangible link to this erased past, represented a hidden legacy of culinary and scientific brilliance in Jay's lineage, a quiet powerhouse of knowledge waiting to be unleashed. The local, underfunded culinary school in their neighborhood was where Jay sometimes attended open classes, observing the culinary students. The lead chef and instructor in the culinary arts department, Chef Julian Thorne, was a man of formidable intellect and undeniable skill, highly respected in his conventional culinary circles. But his brilliance was matched by a deep-seated arrogance and an almost pathological prejudice against anything that challenged his authority or deviated from established classical protocols. He tolerated Jay's presence, but dismissed his quiet observations and intuitive insights with a curt wave of his hand. Washington, Thorne would often state, his voice clipped. Cuisine is a science of protocols and proven methodologies, not intuition or folklore. Your self-taught curiosities are quaint but dangerous. Stick to the cookbooks. He embodied the very essence of unconscious bias, viewing Jay's raw talent as undisciplined, his ambition as misguided, and his unconventional knowledge as irrelevant. He subtly pushed Jay to conform, even sidelining him from opportunities to observe complex culinary projects, convinced that Jay's unconventional thinking would only be a detriment. Chef Thorne, the clear, misguided antagonist, was defined by his stubborn adherence to outdated beliefs and an ingrained bias that blinded him to true unconventional genius. The burning frustration within Jay grew with each passing day. He meticulously filled out applications, detailing his exceptional understanding of complex culinary concepts, his unique insights into flavor pairings, his voracious self-study. He applied for prestigious culinary scholarships to top institutes, the kind that could offer him a path to becoming a pioneering food scientist and, more importantly, a means to support his family and afford Nia's increasingly expensive, ongoing specialized diet and medical care. Each time, he poured his heart into the essays, sketching out his dreams with desperate hope. Each time, the response was a polite, yet chillingly familiar rejection letter. Some cited lack of demonstrated foundational training or traditional academic credentials, thinly veiled jabs at his socioeconomic status and the systemic barriers he faced. Others vaguely mentioned a broader institutional background requirement, a code he'd come to recognize as racial and socioeconomic bias. Each rejection was a fresh wound, a painful reminder of the invisible walls that seemed insurmountable, consistently pushing him deeper into despair. His dreams of a collegiate culinary career, his golden ticket out of poverty, seemed to be fading, dimming with each passing day, leaving him trapped in a cycle of aspiration and systemic rejection. The constant pressure of his family's financial struggles, too, was beginning to press down on him, a heavy shroud threatening to extinguish his flickering hope for a better future. The final rejection letter, bearing the official seal of the prestigious Cordon Bleu Culinary Institute, landed in Jay's inbox like a lead weight. It wasn't merely a digital message, it was a cold, clinical pronouncement of failure. While your unconventional flavor profiles and evident passion are intriguing, Mr. Washington, the email read, its words sterile and dismissive, our program rigorously adheres to candidates demonstrating foundational training within established academic frameworks and possessing traditional institutional credentials. The phrase traditional institutional credentials hung in the air, a thinly veiled polite dismissal, a refusal based not on his profound aptitude, but on his socioeconomic status and the systemic barriers that denied him access to elite preparatory programs. This rejection wasn't just the loss of a scholarship, it was the shattering of his last shred of hope for a conventional recognized path into higher education and, ultimately, into the culinary profession. It plunged him into a despair that felt colder and more suffocating than any long, lonely night spent studying. Just as the professional blow landed, a deeply personal crisis erupted, threatening to unravel the fragile fabric of his family's existence. His younger sister, Nia, a vibrant, spirited girl whose laughter was the sunshine in their small home, experienced a severe flare-up of her rare autoimmune disorder. Her condition, a rare form of systemic vasculitis with significant dietary triggers, had worsened dramatically. The local clinics, underfunded and overwhelmed, could offer little beyond basic symptom management and pain relief. Nia needed immediate, expensive, specialized dietary supplements and experimental immunological treatments at the world-renowned Children's Metabolic and Autoimmune Center in Boston, a facility at the absolute forefront of advanced nutritional and regenerative therapies. The cost was astronomical, a figure that mocked Jay's meager earnings from his grueling part-time jobs at various diners and bakeries. The mounting medical bills for her specialized diet became an unbearable burden, a crushing weight that pinned him beneath a mountain of debt his family couldn't possibly climb. His quiet resilience, usually his greatest asset, was stretched to its breaking point. He felt a profound, aching helplessness, caught between his beloved sister's fading health and his own stifled potential. This dual blow, the public rejection of his talent and the private anguish of his family's looming ruin, was deeply personal, threatening to obliterate his future and shatter his last remaining link to a meaningful, hopeful past. A wave of profound despair and resignation washed over Jay, heavier than any emotional burden he'd ever carried. The thought of abandoning culinary arts entirely, of retreating into a less demanding, more anonymous profession, became a persistent, insidious whisper in his mind. Why fight a system so determined to keep him down? Why subject himself to further pain and humiliation, more polite rejections, more doors slammed shut? The idea of finding work, any work, that didn't demand his soul, that didn't constantly remind him of what he wasn't in the industry's narrow, prejudiced view, seemed a tempting escape. He agonized over Nia's deteriorating condition, the rhythmic wheeze of her breathing, a cruel counterpoint to his growing sense of inadequacy. The familiar fear of public humiliation, of being exposed as an outsider who dared to dream too big, intensified. His instincts screamed at him to remain unseen, to avoid any further attempts that might lead to more crushing rejections. Yet, amidst the suffocating despair, a stubborn, incandescent flicker of defiance ignited within him. It began as a faint glow, almost imperceptible against the darkness, but it pulsed with an unwavering, primal strength. He closed his eyes, clutching the smooth, worn, brass-bound spice box that was his great-grandmother's. A memory, vivid and potent, bloomed in his mind. His great-grandfather, Pops Alistair, his calloused hands demonstrating a complex flavor pairing, his voice raspy with wisdom. "Son, a dish ain't just ingredients. It's a living blueprint. And some chefs, little bird, just gotta draw their own maps, find their own solutions, when no one else will taste what's truly broken." He recalled a specific passage from his worn journal, a dog-eared page filled with arcane diagrams of unconventional techniques for biocatalytic overrides, methods dismissed by conventional culinary science as folklore. "When all known routes are blocked," Alistair had scribbled, his elegant script defying the age spots, "forge your own. For innovation often waits where no one else dares to look." This profound wisdom resonated deep within Jay, stirring a quiet, fierce defiance against the systemic rejections that sought to define him by his race and socioeconomic status, rather than by his profound capabilities. He would not be broken. His spirit, though wounded, refused to be extinguished. Driven by this renewed, desperate resolve, Jay scoured obscure online culinary forums and whispered rumors in the underbelly of his community's informal networks. Most advertised culinary challenges or research competitions offered paltry prize money, barely enough to cover Nia's daily medication, let alone her experimental treatment. Then, buried deep within a shadowy online forum dedicated to extreme urban culinary challenges, he stumbled upon a peculiar notice. It was cryptic, terse, and devoid of official details, posted by an anonymous proxy. It described an incredibly high-stakes, unscheduled, and largely secret underground culinary challenge. A grueling, unsanctioned competition testing diagnostic and design skills under extreme pressure. The prize for the winner was astronomical, an astonishing cash sum that would not only cover Nia's immediate experimental treatment and specialized diet, but also secure her long-term care and provide for his family. But the challenge was considered too dangerous, too unconventional, rejected by all mainstream chefs and academic organizations. It was a high-risk, high-reward proposition, a desperate gamble against insurmountable odds, against the advice of his worried family, who pleaded with him not to risk his future for such a dangerous undertaking, and the explicit disapproval of Chef Julian Thorne, who scoffed at his audacity, labeling it reckless folly and a pipe dream. Jay decided to secretly enter the challenge. He found the anonymous contact, his voice unwavering as he stated his qualifications, carefully omitting his age and official lack of certification, and his desperate intent. He had meticulously studied advanced flavor interactions and emergency food science procedures, far beyond what any formal curriculum offered, and he knew he could handle a crisis, both his own and others. The voice on the other end, cold and impersonal, simply gave him coordinates and a time for a preliminary qualifying assessment. This was his last resort, a leap of faith into the unknown, where his skills would either save his sister or doom him entirely. This audacious decision, fueled by a primal need to save Nia and a deep-seated, almost defiant belief in his own abilities, was his point of no return. It made it utterly impossible for him to retreat to his previous life of quiet despair and stifled potential. The die had been cast. His fate and Nia's now lay in the heart of an unsanctioned competition and the extraordinary mind of a struggling black teenager. Unbeknownst to Jay, his audacious decision to enter the impossible underground culinary challenge became the subject of casual amusement and thinly veiled contempt among the more senior chefs at the local culinary school. Chef Julian Thorne, the man who had subtly steered Jay away from his dreams, leaned back in his polished chair, a smug grin playing on his lips. He had just heard vague rumors of Jay's involvement from one of the other, less scrupulous kitchen assistants who dabbled in the city's informal culinary circuits. "That Washington kid," Thorne scoffed, shaking his head slowly, as if pitying a misguided child. "Entering some back alley, unsanctioned culinary challenge for money? Ha! He thinks his intuitive understanding will work when there are no regulations, no official oversight. It's a fool's errand, I tell you." He dismissed it with a wave of his manicured hand, a confirmation of his inherent bias. He viewed Jay's attempt as a futile, desperate act by someone beneath his notice, reaffirming his belief in fixed social strata. He'll just make a fool of himself, probably get himself into serious legal trouble trying to practice outside the system. He chuckled, a casual, almost indifferent cruelty in his voice. "Just proves my point, doesn't it? Stick to the conventional paths, Washington. High-pressure, high-stakes culinary competitions aren't for his type." He saw Jay's ambition as reckless and misguided, predicting his spectacular failure, which would, in his eyes, prove his long-held prejudices about his students' unsuitability for high-pressure culinary competitions. He casually spread rumors about Jay's unconventional nature and lack of formal training to anyone who would listen, aiming to undermine him before he even began, confident that his spectacular downfall would cement his own entrenched beliefs about who belonged in the elite world of culinary arts and who didn't. The thought of Jay's success was simply an amusing fantasy, a fleeting diversion in his perfectly ordered, prejudiced universe. The air within the vast, cavernous, abandoned warehouse hummed with the silent power of dormant industrial ovens and the sterile scent of old spices. Jay Washington, having successfully navigated the qualifying run and secretly slipped into the main event, found himself deep within the labyrinthine heart of the underground culinary challenge. The course was a brutal test, a punishing series of malfunctioning kitchen systems, crumbling prep zones, and forgotten assembly lines. Unlike sanctioned competitions, there were no cheering crowds, no safety protocols, only the whirring of desperate machines and the silent, judging eyes of a few shadowy onlookers. Jay, with his worn tools and even more worn determination, was pushing himself to the absolute limit. The image of Nia's fading smile and the specific taste of her therapeutic diet, his unwavering beacon. Then, in a particularly desolate stretch of crumbling concrete, near the skeletal remains of an old automated pastry press, a chilling sound cut through the silence, a sharp, metallic shriek followed by a sickening thud. Ahead, a valuable antique kitchen appliance, a complex, delicate piece of culinary machinery belonging to a mysterious elderly man, suffered a catastrophic breakdown, its intricate gears grinding to a halt. It was Mr. Alistair Sterling, though Jay had no idea of his identity beyond the fact that he was a reclusive food industry billionaire, often seen discreetly attending these underground challenges. Sterling's security team hovered helplessly, their faces a mixture of alarm and frustration. The appliance, a sentimental heirloom, was in critical condition, its rare internal mechanisms having seized due to a sudden, unforeseen pressure surge, threatening irreparable damage. Its private culinary engineering team, comprised of highly qualified but increasingly flustered chefs and technicians, hovered around the broken machine, their hushed voices betraying their growing anxiety. They clearly struggled to identify the complex malfunction, mistaking it for a simple power surge, frantically checking the power conduits. "It's just a power surge. We need to reset the main capacitor," shouted one of the engineers, his voice strained with panic. "No!" Jay's voice cut through the air, sharp and authoritative, a surprising contrast to his usual quiet demeanor. He hadn't meant to intervene, to expose himself, but the sight of the deteriorating appliance and their fundamentally incorrect approach forced his hand. He sprinted forward, ignoring the surprised, annoyed glances from Sterling Thorne's team. "Don't reset it. Its intricate gears are seizing, and there's a distinct hum. It's not just a power surge. It's resonant frequency oscillation from a severe harmonic vibration caused by a specific motor gear interaction." He knelt beside the appliance, his hands moving with practiced efficiency. "You're making it worse by trying to force a power reset. Its internal mechanisms are breaking down, releasing microfractures that could permanently fuse the drive shaft." He spoke with the quiet authority of someone who understood the intricate dance of machinery and flavor better than they did. "It needs a counterintuitive adjustment to its governor spring and a specific rare metal alloy to temporarily stabilize the resonant frequency, and its internal mechanisms need to be gently recalibrated to prevent further breakdown." A collective silence descended upon the group. The other team members exchanged bewildered glances. Such a diagnosis was highly unconventional, requiring an almost impossible level of intuitive understanding of biochemical and mechanical interactions and extreme operational exertion. The powerful security men looked ready to physically remove him. Technician Maya, an open-minded but low-ranking technician on Alistair Sterling's private culinary team, stepped forward. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, narrowed as she studied Jay. Unlike her colleagues, she didn't scoff. She saw the genuine insight in Jay's words, the unwavering conviction in his eyes despite his youth and his humble appearance. She had seen enough conventional wisdom fail. "How do you know this, kid?" she asked, her voice wary but not dismissive. Jay instinctively reached for the worn, brass-bound spice box he always carried, its surface almost smooth with age. "My great-grandfather, he studied these things. He designed machines for extreme conditions and understood flavor at a molecular level." He didn't elaborate, didn't mention the injustice, just spoke with the quiet confidence of someone who possessed knowledge others didn't. Technician Maya, despite her team's obvious skepticism and their initial dismissiveness of a young black teenager daring to offer advice on a high-profile, custom-built machine, grudgingly allowed Jay to demonstrate his ideas. Their faces were a mixture of doubt, faint curiosity, and palpable resentment. This was the moment of unveiling, his talent forced into the open by the sheer necessity of the situation. Present throughout this unfolding drama, his face a mask of barely concealed arrogance, was Chef Julian Thorne, the arrogant and highly competitive lead chef and consultant on Alistair Sterling's private culinary team. Chef Thorne, a former collegiate star in culinary robotics, was a top-tier culinarian and designer, but his professionalism was overshadowed by his deep prejudice against any unconventional methods or challenges to his authority. He saw Jay's intervention not as an opportunity for help, but as a direct threat, an exquisite opportunity to discredit him and solidify his own indispensable standing with the Sterling family. "Maya, this is insane," Chef Thorne's voice cut through the air, sharp and accusatory. "You're letting some unaccredited street kid touch Mr. Sterling's machine? This is gross negligence. He's clearly unqualified. This is just a desperate stunt, a cheap attempt to get noticed. You'll endanger Mr. Sterling's heirloom, trusting his reckless ideas." He publicly mocked Jay, his voice carrying, ensuring that any scattered onlookers, or even the hidden cameras of the Underground Challenge, would hear. He subtly tried to obstruct him, nudging a critical diagnostic tool out of reach, or whispering to Sterling about Jay's reckless ideas and unconventional background. Chef Thorne, the clear Type A antagonist, was motivated by personal gain and intellectual arrogance, seeing Jay as nothing more than a pawn in his ruthless game for power and prestige. Despite Chef Julian Thorne's active undermining and the skeptical glances of Alistair Sterling's other team members, Jay moved with calm precision. He instructed technician Maya to find specific, easily accessible items from the basic repair supplies. "We need a small high-density counterweight, a few drops of silicone oil, and a handful of ferrous metal shavings," he directed, his voice unwavering. It seemed absurd, but he was rapidly constructing an improvised balanced vibrational dampener. He then demonstrated a specific delicate adjustment technique on the appliance's governor spring, a technique rooted in his great-grandfather's obscure methods for rapid mechanical stabilization. Against all odds, and despite Chef Julian Thorne's incessant undermining, Jay's unconventional diagnostic and intervention methods yielded immediate, stunning results. The appliance's severe grinding began to subside. Its internal mechanisms, which had been dangerously vibrating, normalized. Its body, responding to the precise improvised dampener and the expertly applied adjustment, slowly began to hum with a smooth, rhythmic precision. This initial success was a powerful breakthrough, validating his expertise beyond a shadow of a doubt. It began to earn him the wary, then growing respect of Alistair Sterling's team, particularly technician Maya, whose initial skepticism had completely melted away, replaced by an unmistakable sense of wonder and profound gratitude. She now saw not just a struggling black teenager, but a young man of immense talent, unwavering strength, and almost supernatural intuition. As Jay worked with such intense focus, the worn brass-bound spice box he always carried, usually hidden beneath his clothes, had slipped completely free, catching the ambient light filtering into the desolate industrial zone. It was a modest, unassuming piece, its intricate, almost alchemical engravings and peculiar markings almost worn smooth by time. Mr. Alistair Sterling, though focused on his appliance's stabilizing condition, caught a clear glimpse of it. Something about its unique old-world craftsmanship and the faint, almost archaic culinary symbols stirred a faint, half-forgotten memory, a feeling of profound familiarity related to his own early days, exploring old patents and culinary texts. He dismissed it for the moment, too caught up in the relief of his appliance's improvement. He was focused on the immediate miracle, not yet realizing the profound historical significance of the unassuming spice box, or the legendary lineage it represented. The truth, like a hidden ingredient, was slowly, quietly beginning to reveal itself, waiting for the perfect moment to infuse its full flavor. The news of Jay Washington's uncanny ability to stabilize Mr. Alistair Sterling's antique kitchen appliance, when the billionaire's own elite culinary team was baffled, reverberated through the exclusive, tightly knit world of ultra-high net worth food industrialists and their discreet, often secretive networks. Mr. Alistair Sterling, a man whose word carried immense weight in the food tech and venture capital industries, had witnessed Jay's quiet brilliance firsthand. His initial relief at his heirloom's recovery had quickly morphed into a profound, almost reverent awe for the young man who had seemingly saved a priceless piece of his family's history. Chef Julian Thorne's name, the lead chef and consultant on Sterling's private team, now seethed. His meticulously crafted world of culinary infallibility and professional prestige began to fracture under the weight of whispers and the undeniable, stunning success of the unaccredited street kid. Chef Julian Thorne, his face a mask of barely concealed rage and humiliation, saw the burgeoning respect for Jay as an existential threat to his own career and reputation within the elite culinary community. He was already smarting from the quiet yet insistent inquiries from Alistair Sterling's legal team regarding his team's initial misdiagnosis. With a predatory gleam in his eye, he secretly devised a public spectacle, a grand display of culinary prowess, designed solely to expose Jay as a fraud and definitively cement his own superior position. He used his considerable influence within the exclusive underground culinary challenges circuit to arrange a high-stakes live gastronomic system failure simulation. This wasn't just a test, it was an ambush designed to replicate a complex, rapidly deteriorating culinary crisis, an acute software glitch combined with severe molecular fatigue and flavor circuit stress, mimicking an advanced form of system overload and core flavor processor failure. He rigged the challenge, designing the scenario with layers of unnecessary bureaucratic hurdles and highly unusual ingredient restrictions and diagnostic protocols that would favor conventional, less intuitive approaches, relying heavily on advanced equipment he knew Jay wouldn't have access to or training he believed Jay lacked. The event was set to be discreetly recorded and, if successful in discrediting Jay, anonymously leaked to culinary boards and rival food corporations to tarnish Jay's burgeoning reputation and ensure his permanent blacklisting from any legitimate culinary career. The day of the challenge dawned under the harsh glare of portable, high-intensity stadium lights, illuminating the sterile, opulent interior of Alistair Sterling's private culinary complex. The colossal facility, usually reserved for cutting-edge R&D, had been converted into a makeshift high-stakes arena, its immense open spaces humming with the silent power of dormant industrial ovens and sleek automated preparation units. This was the symbolic arena, a place of immense wealth and technological advancement, designed to highlight Jay's outsider status. The air hung thick with anticipation, the hushed murmurs of the invited observers punctuated by the occasional discreet flash of a hidden camera. Jay, still in his simple, practical clothing, stepped onto the polished concrete floor, his worn sneakers a stark contrast to the gleaming surfaces. The sheer scale of the space was overwhelming. Every polished surface seemed to reflect his image back at him, amplifying the feeling of intense scrutiny. The public nature of the event, with every breath and movement amplified, transformed the R&D kitchen from a place of quiet innovation into a symbolic battleground where every decision was magnified, and failure could be catastrophic, both for the simulated dish and for Nia's fading hope. Jay felt profoundly alone in this chaotic, high-stakes environment, surrounded by faces that ranged from skeptical to openly hostile. Mr. Alistair Sterling, though outwardly supportive, was forced to maintain an objective distance for the public spectacle. He sat conspicuously in the front row of the observer section with a panel of culinary dignitaries, his expression carefully neutral, though his gaze was fixed intently on Jay. He offered a reassuring but public nod, a silent acknowledgement of his faith. The patient for the simulation was a cutting-edge, highly specialized molecular gastronomy appliance, gleaming under the lights on a state-of-the-art testing stand, its condition carefully programmed by Chef Thorne to rapidly deteriorate. Its vitals and functional parameters were displayed on a large screen for all to see. Chef Julian Thorne and his chosen team were present, ostentatiously displaying their official credentials and pristine equipment. They were subtly hostile, whispering among themselves, offering misleading comments to the judging panel, and loudly questioning Jay's methods to anyone within earshot. Chef Thorne himself stalked the perimeter of the challenge area, a predatory gleam in his eye, his condescending remarks echoing through the expansive lab. He even had a stooge, a disgruntled culinary intern who, through a hidden earpiece, subtly, accidentally, bumped into a cart holding Jay's small, meticulously organized personal spice kit, scattering his great-grandfather's rare spices and homemade flavor extracts across the floor. It was a petty, cruel act, designed to disrupt his focus and force him to waste precious seconds. Jay was utterly alone, armed only with his innate talent, the fated wisdom of his great-grandfather's teachings, and the unwavering belief of Alistair Sterling, whose distant support felt like a fragile lifeline. As if the rigged rules, the sabotaged equipment, and Chef Thorne's constant harassment weren't enough, a new, daunting constraint was announced. A stern-faced announcer, clearly under Chef Thorne's thumb, stepped forward. "And to truly test the limits of expertise," he announced, his voice amplified through the lab's sophisticated sound system. "We have an additional challenge. The kitchen's primary analytical sensory array, a proprietary Sterling Food Systems neural interface flavor analyzer, crucial for diagnosing rapid onset flavor and textural failure, has experienced an unforeseen malfunction." He gestured to a large inert screen, its lights dark. "Competitors will have to complete their culinary diagnosis and implement critical intervention using only standard common market ingredients and tools, and they will have only 45 minutes to do so before the simulated dish's integrity reaches a critical, irreversible point." A ripple of gasps went through the observer section. This was unprecedented. The neural interface analyzer was indispensable for diagnosing the specific type of rapidly progressing, intermittent flavor and textural failure simulated in the dish. Without it, the task was deemed impossible by conventional means. This pushed Jay to the brink, forcing him to improvise an incredibly complex, temporary culinary solution using only limited, non-standard resources available in a standard toolkit. A few common spices, some basic emulsifiers, and a handful of emergency flavor extracts. The clock began its relentless digital count on a small screen above the simulated dish's presentation stand. Each tick a hammer blow against his dwindling time. Jay stepped forward, his gaze unwavering, his expression a mask of intense concentration. He ignored Chef Thorne's smug grin and the muttering of the other culinary experts who believed the task truly impossible without the proprietary equipment. He didn't rush, didn't frantically pull out ingredients. Instead, he performed a quiet, almost ritualistic sequence. He laid out his common tools meticulously, each spoon, each dropper, a familiar extension of his own hand. Then, with a silent, almost sacred gesture, he carefully placed his great-grandfather's worn brass-bound spice box on a small, clean tray near the simulated dish's control panel. Its intricate alchemical engravings and peculiar markings seemed to hum with a silent energy, a connection to the man who had taught him to listen to the silent language of flavor in ways no one else could. He began his diagnosis, not with chemical analyzers or complicated software, but with his hands, his nose, and his almost supernatural intuition. He placed his palm flat against the serving dish, feeling for subtle changes in temperature that hinted at internal reactions. He gently agitated the mixture, listening to the subtle sounds of separation or coagulation, discerning the minute differences in viscosity that spoke volumes to his attuned senses. He even used a simple pH strip, salvaged from an old science kit, not just to test acidity, but to subtly gauge anomalous enzyme activity too small for calibrated machines to detect. He even held a specialized sonic flavor vibrator, an old, well-worn tool from his great-grandfather's kit, to the dish's core, listening to the intricate dance of its internal molecular structures, detecting the barely perceptible murmurs and hums. He was tracing an invisible fault, a ghost in the flavor that only he could taste, a phantom that eluded the most sophisticated of modern equipment. Chef Thorne, watching him, initially scoffed. "He's trying to feel the flavor, Mr. Sterling. What a charade." But as minutes ticked by and Jay methodically narrowed down the possibilities, Thorne's confidence began to waver. He tried to disrupt Jay, offering loud, incorrect advice to the judging panel. "He's wasting time. That's not protocol. This is why you need proper training, not guesswork." He even instructed a lab assistant, via a hidden earpiece, to subtly increase the ambient humidity in the kitchen, hoping to artificially alter the simulated dish's functional parameters and throw off Jay's manual readings and delicate balance. But Jay remained focused, his concentration absolute. He traced the complex interplay of symptoms, his fingers moving with a dancer's grace, his intuition guiding him to the most unlikely of places. He wasn't just guessing, he was performing a silent, intricate dance of deduction, his mind correlating every subtle textural change, every minute scent, every minuscule flavor reading. With only 15 minutes left on the clock, his eyes fixed on a specific pattern in the dish's erratic structural breakdown, a tiny, almost imperceptible film of rancidity in the core of the flavor profile, became detectable to his trained palate. It was a micro-oxidation in a crucial lipid, a flaw so minute it would only cause an intermittent, destabilizing chemical reaction under precise conditions of temperature and exposure. Exactly the kind of undetectable malfunction that baffled conventional diagnostics. It was the heart of the ghost. The ultimate test was far from over, but the elusive problem, the one designed to break him, had just revealed its secret to his unwavering senses. The air grew thick with a desperate tension, the clock ticking towards a climactic revelation, the fate of the challenge, and his sister's future, hanging by a single slender thread. The air within Alistair Sterling's private culinary complex was a living entity, thick with the electric tension of 1,000 unspoken fears. 3 minutes. Only 3 agonizing minutes remained on the digital clock, each tick a hammer blow against Jay Washington's dwindling time. He had pinpointed the insidious micro-oxidation in the simulated dish's crucial lipid, the ghost in the flavor, designed to be undetectable by conventional means. But identifying the problem was only the first impossible step. Fixing it, without the proprietary Sterling Food Systems neural interface flavor analyzer chef Julian Thorne had deliberately malfunctioned, was the true impossibility, the ultimate gauntlet. Every movement Jay made was a testament to his discipline and the profound depth of his focus. He knew conventional repair was impossible within the constraints. The delicate lipid was too deeply embedded, too sensitive to simply treat with standard culinary procedures in the remaining seconds. He ran a gloved finger over the simulated dish's serving stand, his mind racing, sifting through every obscure technique, every forgotten lesson from his great-grandfather's cryptic journal. He could feel the weight of anticipation, the silent judgment of the crowd, the triumphant sneer he knew was forming on Chef Thorne's face. The pressure was suffocating, threatening to crush him. With just 60 seconds left on the clock, a horrifying, piercing alarm blared through the kitchen's sophisticated sound system. The primary monitor, displaying the simulated dish's functional parameters, suddenly went dark, a critical, system-wide collapse in the simulated dish's core molecular structure, a separate, unrelated malfunction designed by Chef Thorne to add another layer of insurmountable pressure, a final, catastrophic obstacle. The simulated dish's vibrant colors flatlined into a dull, unappetizing gray, a long, agonizing sizzle echoing through the confined space. A collective gasp, sharp and sudden, rippled through the observers. Chef Julian Thorne, who had been watching from the sidelines, his face a mask of barely contained triumph, let out a loud, mocking laugh that cut through the air. "There he goes. Catastrophic failure. Told you he was a hack. Game over, Washington," he roared, his voice laced with venom and absolute certainty, already savoring his victory. For a terrifying, agonizing beat, it seemed all was truly lost. Jay froze, the blaring alarm a deafening shriek in his ears, the flatlined colors a physical blow. Despair, cold and sharp, pierced through him. The core molecular collapse was too complex, too extensive to fix in mere seconds. His meticulously precise identification of the micro-oxidation felt utterly meaningless in the face of this new, engineered catastrophe. It was the familiar sting of helplessness, amplified 1,000-fold. Every past rejection, every prejudice he had faced, rushing back to overwhelm him. The sheer impossibility of the situation pressed down on him, threatening to crush his spirit. Alistair Sterling, too, slumped in his seat, a visible sag of crushing disappointment. His belief, his hope, seemed to drain away. But then, a surge of fierce, defiant energy ignited within Jay. It was a primal refusal to be defeated, a resonant echo of his great-grandfather's unwavering spirit. His voice, in his mind, clear as a bell. "When they block the path, Jay, create your own shortcut. There's always an overlooked ingredient." A specific, obscure technique from Alistair's hidden notes flashed through his mind. An unorthodox, incredibly risky biocatalytic override procedure for culinary systems, using unexpected, almost mundane components, designed for emergency last-ditch scenarios. It was a long shot, a desperate measure, but it was the only one. With a furious flurry of action, his movements a blur of practiced grace and intuitive genius, Jay retrieved a small, oddly shaped brass dropper from a hidden compartment in his worn brass-bound spice box, a piece his great-grandfather had designed for experimental purposes years ago, a universal molecular catalyst. With an almost superhuman speed, he mixed a few drops of a common fruit acid with a rare homemade enzyme extract from his great-grandfather's secret recipe, connecting it to a series of auxiliary ports on the dish's presentation stand, diverting the simulated molecular commands around the failed core structure. His hands moved with a chef's precision, blending, stirring, securing. His brow was furrowed in intense concentration, beads of sweat trickling down his temples, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Chef Thorne's mocking laughter faded into the background, drowned out by the thunderous beat of his own heart. The clock ticked. 30 seconds. 20. 10. Finally, just as the timer hit 0, Jay snapped the last connection into place. The blaring alarm, miraculously, fell silent. The flatlined colors, which moments before had shown only a grim, unwavering gray, now flicker once, then burst to life with a strong, vibrant, rhythmic blurb-flicker-blurb. The diagnostic lights on the panel, which had been a chaotic, flashing red, turned to a solid, reassuring green, indicating full system integrity. The elusive malfunctions and the deliberate sabotage had both been banished by his audacious ingenuity. The kitchen exploded. Chef Julian Thorne's triumphant sneer, frozen on his face, contorted into a mask of pure, unadulterated shock. His jaw dropped, his eyes wide and vacant, completely disconnected from the reality unfolding before him. He stumbled backward, his carefully constructed world collapsing. He looked around for someone to share his disbelief, but every single face in the kitchen was turned towards Jay, their expressions shifting from disbelief to absolute astonishment, then to unadulterated, roaring admiration. He sank into his seat, a small, pathetic figure, utterly defeated, his face paling to an ashen gray. His defeat was complete, his malice utterly vanquished by the undeniable force of Jay's genius. Mr. Alistair Sterling, who had been rigid with tension, slowly rose to his feet, his eyes wide with a profound, almost dizzying sense of awe. His meticulously maintained composure finally cracked, replaced by an expression of pure, unbridled wonder. He began to clap, slowly at first, then with increasing fervor, leading the thunderous standing ovation. The applause swelled, a roaring tsunami of sound that washed over Jay, acknowledging not just his skill, but his extraordinary courage, his groundbreaking ingenuity, and his unwavering spirit. Other chefs, initially doubtful and dismissive, now stared in open-mouthed wonder, their faces etched with dawning respect, their professional pride humbled by the sheer brilliance they had witnessed. Murmurs of "unbelievable," "a genius," and "he mastered it" swept through the kitchen, growing into a deafening roar of adoration. The sheer force of their collective recognition, the deafening applause, and the visible emotion in their faces confirmed Jay's absolute victory, his undeniable genius, and his complete vindication. As Jay, flushed with exertion and a quiet, blossoming pride, bowed to the roaring crowd, the harsh kitchen lights caught the gleaming brass-bound spice box that he clutches tightly in his hand. It seemed to pulse with an inner light, its intricate, alchemical engravings and peculiar markings shimmering brightly, a silent testament to a legacy reborn. Mr. Alistair Sterling, his eyes still shining with emotion from the triumph, caught sight of it clearly. He knew that spice box. Its unique craftsmanship and the archaic culinary symbols were utterly unmistakable. It was the personal spice box of Chef Alistair the Flavor Alchemist Washington, a legendary, almost mythical culinary innovator who had pioneered groundbreaking food science techniques and unique flavor profiles in the mid-20th century. Alistair, a brilliant black culinarian, had been unjustly denied recognition for his work, his techniques suppressed, and his contributions erased from mainstream culinary history due to systemic racism and corporate espionage. Sterling's own grandfather, a visionary food industrialist deeply interested in ethical innovation and social justice, had not only corresponded with Alistair in secret for years, but had also passionately championed his cause, lamenting the injustice done to him, a story Sterling had heard from him in hushed, regretful tones, a profound, unfulfilled mission he had entrusted to him before his passing. The spice box, gleaming in Jay's hand, confirms his lineage. He is Alistair Washington's great-grandson, inheriting not just his unparalleled culinary genius, but also his quiet dignity, his relentless pursuit of knowledge, and the very spirit of innovation that had defined him. This revelation, hitting Alistair Sterling with the force of a physical blow, elevated Jay from a surprising talent to a living legend, the direct, rightful heir to an almost mythical culinary legacy. The struggling black teenager, dismissed and rejected, was in fact royalty in the world of true culinary innovation, a prodigy whose quiet knowledge surpassed generations of conventional wisdom. The thunderous applause for Jay Washington at Alistair Sterling's private culinary complex echoed far beyond the confines of the R&D kitchen, reverberating throughout the exclusive, often secretive world of elite food science research and high finance. The news of his miraculous triumph over the impossible culinary emergency, coupled with the astonishing revelation of his lineage to Chef Alistair, the flavor alchemist Washington, a legendary figure in food science and culinary innovation, spread like wildfire. Mr. Alistair Sterling, a man whose word carried immense weight in the food tech and venture capital industries, personally ensured the story was told with unflinching honesty, meticulously detailing Chef Julian Thorne's petty machinations and Jay's unparalleled brilliance in every prestigious circle he frequented. Culinary journals and scientific publications, initially skeptical of an unknown teenager with unconventional methods, now ran sensational headlines, often featuring glowing praise for Jay and unflattering exposés of Chef Julian Thorne's unethical and prejudiced practices. For Chef Julian Thorne, the public humiliation in Alistair Sterling's R&D kitchen was nothing short of catastrophic. His carefully constructed facade of culinary infallibility and professional prestige crumbled under the harsh glare of public scrutiny. News of his attempts to sabotage Jay, coupled with the unyielding public support from Alistair Sterling and the irrefutable evidence of his unprofessional conduct, sealed his fate. Sterling, now a staunch and powerful ally of Jay, wasted no time. He used his immense influence to publicly denounce Chef Thorne's unethical culinary practices and blatant discriminatory tendencies. Suddenly, Chef Thorne's vast network of connections evaporated. Lucrative research grants he had been negotiating collapsed. Culinary institutes, once eager to feature him, revoked his teaching positions and culinary accreditations across multiple states. His carefully cultivated image as a top-tier chef withered under the harsh light of community condemnation. His sprawling, once prestigious kitchen at the university, a symbol of his power, became a lonely, echoing testament to his hubris. Students, disgusted by his arrogance and the public revelations of his cruelty, transferred to other programs. His phone, once constantly ringing with offers and fawning calls, now sat in eerie silence. The corporate shark title he so proudly flaunted vanished into thin air. He lost all his major contracts, his once loyal staff abandoned him for more ethical employment, and his vast wealth began to hemorrhage. Chef Thorne tried to reclaim his lost dignity, to bluster and deny, to threaten and intimidate, but his words now rang hollow, his reputation in tatters, reduced to a bitter, isolated man, consumed by his own small-mindedness. He ended up financially ruined and professionally ostracized, facing multiple lawsuits for gross negligence and intellectual property theft, a fitting end for his greed and prejudice. One cool evening, weeks after the challenge, Jay was reviewing preliminary recipe designs for a new project when a quiet knock came at the door of his modest apartment. It was Chef Julian Thorne, his face a mixture of humility and embarrassment. He looked older, his shoulders slumped, his usual air of stiff authority replaced by a visible unease. Jay, surprised, invited him in. For a long moment, Thorne simply stood there, avoiding Jay's gaze. "Jay," he rasped, his voice rough, devoid of its usual condescension. He cleared his throat, a flicker of something akin to genuine regret, or perhaps shame, appearing in his eyes for the very first time. I was wrong. About everything. About you. About what's possible." He shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable. "What you did for Mr. Sterling's appliance. No one in my generation, no one in this field has ever seen anything like it. You won. And I was rooting for you to fail. I deeply regret that." He couldn't offer a full apology, his pride still an impediment, but the simple, uncharacteristic admission, the quiet acknowledgement of Jay's undeniable skill and the sheer scale of his victory, was a testament to how profoundly Jay had shattered his rigid worldview. He finally saw Jay not as a statistic or a misguided student, but as an undeniable force of nature, a master of the very domain he had claimed to understand. His own ingrained biases, exposed and broken, now paved the way for a grudging, then growing respect. For Jay, however, the challenge was not just a victory. It was a watershed moment, the opening of doors to an unimaginable future. Mr. Alistair Sterling, utterly captivated by Jay's genius and deeply moved by the discovery of his lineage to Chef Alistair, the flavor alchemist Washington, a man his own grandfather had deeply admired and lamented the injustice done to, wasted no time in making an extraordinary offer. He saw in Jay the continuation of a legacy he felt honor-bound to restore. "Jay," Mr. Sterling had said, his voice now imbued with a profound respect he hadn't anticipated, as they sat in his opulent office overlooking the city skyline, surrounded by models of cutting-edge food processing systems. "Your great-grandfather, Alistair, was more than a chef. He was an artist, a visionary. He understood the very pulse of flavors, the silent language of molecules and ingredients. And you, my dear boy, you have his hands, his mind, his very spirit. He spoke of seeing beyond the visible, of listening to the subtle whispers of a coming breakthrough. You possess that gift, magnified." He presented an unparalleled opportunity, a full partnership in establishing a groundbreaking, independent food science and culinary research division within Sterling Food Systems, to be known as the Washington Institute for Ethical Gastronomy. He would provide the significant financial resources, the state-of-the-art facilities, and access to his extensive culinary library and network of experts. Jay, in turn, would oversee the research, design, and development of revolutionary ethical food production, focusing on neglected ingredients, sustainable culinary practices, and the therapeutic properties of specialized diets, building upon his great-grandfather's pioneering work. This was not merely a job offer. It was an invitation to fully realize his great-grandfather's lifelong vision, to revolutionize cuisine, and to become a leading figure in food science. It was an acknowledgement of his intellectual and practical aptitude, a profound recognition of his worth that transcends any material reward. This was the true compensation, the ultimate prize, the freedom and resources to fully explore and develop his prodigious talent, to forge a legacy that would benefit generations. He would be surrounded by top culinary minds, given every tool he needed to become a master in his own right, building upon his great-grandfather's groundbreaking research. Sterling even promised to dedicate legal teams to systematically recover his great-grandfather's stolen recipes and patents and ensure his rightful place in history. Jay, his eyes wide with a mixture of wonder and burgeoning hope, accepted with a quiet solemnity. The offer was a revelation, a validation of the quiet passion that had long burned within him. His cramped apartment, the struggles, the rejections, the daunting challenge, all now felt like a chrysalis from which he was about to emerge, transformed. Later that evening, as the city lights began to twinkle below, Alistair Sterling drove Jay back to his private estate. The conversation was easy, flowing, a natural rhythm developing between them. Sterling spoke of his own grandfather, a remarkable food industrialist, and his deep admiration for Chef Alistair, the flavor alchemist, Washington. He recounted how he had secretly corresponded with Jay's great-grandfather, lamenting the injustice done to him, and how he had confided in Sterling, entrusting him with the unfulfilled mission of righting that historical wrong. "My grandfather often spoke of the injustice done to your great-grandfather," Sterling said, his voice soft, almost choked with emotion. "He saw his genius, recognized his vision. He would be so proud to see you carrying on that legacy, Jay. He truly would." They stopped by a serene koi pond on the estate. The air was cool, carrying the scent of night-blooming jasmine. Sterling turned to Jay, his eyes earnest, filled with a warmth that went beyond professional respect. "Jay," he began, his voice a little shaky, "this journey, meeting you, it has redefined everything for me. You're brilliant, courageous, and possess a spirit that simply shines. You saved my appliance. You saved a piece of my family's history, and you've shown me what true integrity and genius look like. Beyond business, beyond legacy, I've found something truly extraordinary with you." Then, in a spontaneous, deeply personal moment, touched by Jay's grace, strength, and brilliance, Alistair Sterling made an unexpected, heartfelt request. He didn't kneel, but his voice was thick with emotion, his eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Jamal Washington," he said, looking up at the young man, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. "You've not only healed a broken legacy and shown me a future I didn't know existed, you've become family. My late grandfather, before he passed, always believed in Alistair's vision. Will you do us the honor of becoming the personal culinary and food science advisor for Sterling Food Systems, and for my family's ventures, for life? You are the only one I trust to guide our future innovations and ensure they are developed with true integrity and ethical purpose. This isn't just a request. It's a plea from a grateful man. You saved what was most precious to me, Jay. You saved my family's hope." Jay gasped, his hand flying to his mouth. The sheer unexpectedness of the moment, the profound sincerity in Sterling's gaze, the tears in the eyes of a man who rarely showed emotion, rendered him speechless. His journey, his quiet desperation, the rejection, the triumph, all culminated in this moment, a testament to a life he could never have imagined. His younger sister, Naya, recovering well at the specialized diet facility, thanks to the initial payment from Sterling, had given her tearful blessing to his new venture, proud beyond measure of his achievements. Now, here was a partner who saw him completely, understood him deeply, and trusted him implicitly. The solitude that had once defined him was now a choice, not a necessity. The internal growth was profound. He was no longer just a black teenager struggling, but a burgeoning culinary prodigy, recognized and revered, stepping fully into his legacy. A young man who had found his perfect partner in life and in innovation. Tears welled in Jay's own eyes, tears of profound relief, overwhelming joy, and a deep sense of belonging. He extended his hand, his fingers trembling slightly, gripping Sterling's arm firmly. "Yes," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Yes, Sterling, it would be my greatest honor." As their hands met, a new chapter, unforeseen and brimming with promise, began to unfold. 15 years later, the name Chef Dr. Jamal J. Washington resonated through the most esteemed echelons of global food science research and culinary innovation, no longer whispered as a curious anomaly, but pronounced with reverence. At 32, remarkably young for his profound impact, Jay had achieved a level of mastery that transcended conventional boundaries. His reputation was built on a profound understanding of human ingenuity, fused with an intuitive, almost spiritual connection to the very essence of ethical innovation through integrative approaches. He had developed his own unique methodology, seamlessly blending the timeless principles of his great-grandfather's theoretical brilliance with cutting-edge food technology, advanced AI for nutritional analysis, and sustainable culinary solutions. He was a visionary, a pioneer, whose touch could resurrect failing food systems and redefine the future of eco-conscious gastronomic development. His expansive office at the sprawling, state-of-the-art Washington Institute for Ethical Gastronomy, a gleaming testament to innovation and ethical food science, built and funded by Alistair Sterling, now displayed a prominent, beautifully framed portrait of his great-grandfather, the flavor alchemist, his kind eyes mirroring Jay's own quiet intensity. And always, nestled securely within a specially designed pocket of his tailored chef's coat, lay the worn brass-bound spice box, now meticulously preserved, its intricate alchemical engravings and peculiar markings a constant, luminous reminder of his heritage, the extraordinary path he had carved, and the profound journey he had undertaken to find his true calling and purpose. Jay was not just succeeding, he was thriving, profoundly fulfilled, and radiating a quiet, unshakable happiness that touched everyone around him. He and Alistair Sterling were not merely business partners, they were collaborators, bound by shared values, intellectual curiosity, and mutual respect, their lives intertwined in a beautiful, unexpected dance of friendship and purpose. Jay's journey, from the quiet desperation of a cramped apartment to the boundless skies of technological innovation, had revealed a deep-seated truth about himself. His purpose extended far beyond the mechanics of invention. It was about creating opportunities, about igniting the same spark of passion and potential in others that Alistair Sterling had so generously ignited in him. With the unwavering support of Sterling, who had indeed become his truest partner in every sense of the word, Jay established numerous initiatives aimed at fostering diversity and inclusion in STEM fields and, particularly, in culinary arts and food science. Foremost among these was the Alistair Washington Legacy Fund, named in honor of his pioneering great-grandfather. This wasn't just another charitable endeavor. It was a comprehensive, deeply personal program dedicated to nurturing young talent, especially those from underprivileged communities and minority groups who, like him, possessed an innate aptitude for scientific inquiry and a burning desire to excel. The fund provided full scholarships to specialized food science research programs, top-tier culinary academies, and leading innovation hubs, ensuring that financial barriers would never stifle burgeoning talent. Jay personally spearheaded a robust mentorship program, taking on promising young researchers and aspiring chefs as his apprentices at the Washington Institute. He spent countless hours guiding them, patiently explaining the intricate details of complex systems, teaching them the subtle art of listening to the silent language of flavor, and encouraging them to see beyond the cold data to the very soul of the design, ensuring their innovations served humanity. He shared his own story with raw honesty, the quiet struggles, the pain of rejection due to his race and socioeconomic status, the moments of profound doubt, and the ultimate triumph of embracing his true self and finding his purpose. He often emphasized that true success isn't merely about individual achievement, but about the profound responsibility of lifting others, of illuminating paths for those who might otherwise remain in the shadows, their talents unseen, their voices unheard. His work with the fund was not just philanthropy, it was a living embodiment of his gratitude, a deeply personal mission, and his unwavering commitment to forging a more equitable and compassionate future for all. He stood as a beacon of possibility, a living testament to the fact that brilliance knows no socioeconomic boundaries, no racial limitations, and that with the right opportunity and unwavering belief, potential can explode into genius, transforming lives and landscapes. The sun, streaming through the vast environmentally conscious windows of the Washington Institute's state-of-the-art research wing, cast a warm golden glow on Jay. He stood, not in formal academic attire, but in a practical, elegantly tailored chef's coat, his confident posture reflecting years of hands-on experience and intellectual growth. Around him, a dozen young faces, eyes wide with a mixture of awe and fervent curiosity, hung on his every word. They were from incredibly diverse backgrounds: inner-city youth, aspiring scientists from struggling rural communities, students who had been told that culinary or scientific fields were not for them. All were united by a shared passion for the intricacies of flavor design and the desire to push the boundaries of innovation. Jay pointed to a meticulously crafted, gleaming model of a revolutionary new humanitarian food processing unit his team had developed. The Alchemist, a testament to resilience and innovation, a dream brought to life from the seeds of his great-grandfather's forgotten genius. Every part of a system, Jay explained, his voice clear and resonant, from the smallest molecule to the most complex flavor profile, tells a story. And your job, as future food scientists and innovators, is not just to analyze, but to listen to those stories, to understand the harmony, the delicate balance within every culinary creation. True mastery isn't just in what you achieve, but in how you innovate, how you build, and what you can inspire. He gestured towards the model of the alchemist, a testament to his profound understanding and tireless dedication. His younger sister, Naya, now a healthy, thriving young woman and a promising food scientist at the Institute, fully funded by the Alistair Washington Legacy Fund, stood proudly by his side, helping manage the Institute's extensive outreach programs. This very approach, he continued, a soft, contented smile gracing his lips, taught me that the greatest power isn't just in overcoming adversity, but in cultivating resilience, in growing new life from the seeds of past rejections, and in ensuring that the future of culinary excellence takes root for everyone. The final image, both powerful and poignant, encapsulated the entire journey. Jay stood in the heart of that thriving, vibrant facility, his hand resting gently on the sleek, silent chassis of the Alchemist Humanitarian Food Processing Unit, his touch tender, reverent. His other hand, raised slightly in a guiding gesture towards the eager young faces before him, was adorned by the gleaming brass-bound spice box, now catching the golden light of a late afternoon sun. It seemed to pulse with a quiet energy, its intricate engravings and peculiar markings shimmering brightly. A silent testament to a legacy reborn, knowledge passed down, and dreams taking vibrant flight. The spice box pointed not backward to the past, but forward, towards the boundless possibilities stretching before the next generation. It was a beautiful, profound image of abundance, community, and the enduring, transformative power of talent, compassion, and unwavering belief. It showed a future where the seeds of wisdom, once nurtured in solitude, now blossomed into a shared, boundless garden of culinary excellence, promising a more equitable future for all. If this story stirred your heart, if it reminds you that courage can alter destinies and that light always finds a path even in the deepest darkness, please leave a comment. Share this story with those who need inspiration. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to never miss our upcoming stories.